عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم ما بعد. I want to welcome all of you for this beautiful and very special presentation. School just started, at least for us here, started just yesterday. For many, maybe a little bit before, and for most people, it was going to start this Monday, inshallah ta'ala, which means few more days to come with Allah Azza wa Jal. Once the school year starts, now the household, the entire household, the entire structure of the family, everything changed. Now there is so much to worry about, there's so much to anticipate, and so much to be prepared for. People, they start, asking the imam, sheikh, my kids, this and that. They want to go for counseling because their kids going through some issues. They want to talk to the teachers because, they want the children to make sure that they're achieving, alhamdulillah, up to the level, the grade level, and so on. And obviously, we need the expertise of the parents. I want to know, how do you guys do it? If you have your kids going here and going there, how do you guys do all these things? Many, many questions people, they've been asking us, what should we do when the schools start? Alhamdulillah, Rabbi Amin, I'm very happy and proud to present to you a very special panel that we have over here. So if I ask you a question, if I would say, what would you get when you have an imam, a family therapist, a teacher, and a parent on one panel? What do you get out of this? A powerhouse, mashallah. An amazing panel, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So we would like to start strong. Our presentation is about starting our school year strong, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. How can we, as families, as household, prepare for a beautiful, wonderful, strong return to school, inshallah, azza wa jal. So with us, we have here, on my right side, inshallah ta'ala, we have Uthman Mughni, brother Uthman Mughni. He is actually a family therapist, and he's our resident family therapist, I would say, and he's going to, inshallah ta'ala, present himself for us. Why is it so important? If you use the microphone, inshallah. Want to talk about yourself, present yourself, who you are, and why do you think it's very important for families to, to understand your role in this actually going back to school?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Usman Mughni. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the founder of and primary therapist at a clinic about 10 minutes down the road, Peaceful You Counseling. So I work a lot with school-aged children. There's a direct relationship between school and child's self-esteem, well-being, mental health, and so on. And when a child is going through things like test anxiety, social anxiety, depression, bullying, these things affect their self-worth, they affect their performance in school. And so my role within the community, as far as that is to help work with families, to help them overcome that. And a lot of times I do coordinate with schools. So if a child, for example, has social anxiety or is going through some type of family struggle, it might even be if a child is going through dealing with the parents getting divorced or some type of challenge, I can usually contribute by writing a letter to the school where they can make certain accommodations as far as maybe giving extended time for homework or tests or so on and so forth. So my role is more on the emotional and behavioral side.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Barakallah feek. We have the imam in the house. Bismillah.
The imam in the house. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Abdullah Oduro. I'm the...
They will adjust the
My name is Abdullah Oduro. They're adjusting? Okay. My name is Abdullah Oduro. I'm the imam of a masjid down the street called the Islamic Center of Coppell in Louisville. It's right down the street from here, about 5 minutes. It's a small musalla, startup mosque. It's been about almost a year and a half or 2 years, roughly, that's been in effect. And I'm primarily here to serve as far as from the aspect of the spiritual. So issues that the youth may be dealing with, understanding themselves and how to have a synergy with that and knowing who Allah is and why that even matters and how to actualize that in their lives, particularly in this subject matter of dealing with schools, inshallah ta'ala. So from the spiritual perspective is why I'm here and joining as a Lego piece in this powerhouse.
Our teacher here, we have the teacher, Sister Tahsina Siddiqui.
My name is Tahsina Siddiqui. I'm a teacher currently at Brighton Horizons Academy, where I've been for the past 6 years. I've also previously taught, before teaching in Islamic school, I taught in charter schools in New York City and in South Oak Cliff, Dallas. I have a master's degree in education policy and leadership from SMU, and a bachelor's degree in English. I'm here to represent the teacher and the education voice. So basically from a teacher's perspective, what do we do to help prepare your children for the school year? What are we doing all throughout the year, and how can we form that teacher-parent connection throughout the year?
So you taught in public school or charter school, public school, and
Yes.
Islamic school. So both perspectives,
Both
alhamdulillah.
perspectives.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. And we have the parent representing the community for us, inshallah ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Huma Hussain, and as Sheikh Yasser said, I'm a member of this community. My credentials are that I'm a mother. I have 5 children, and they range from 20, 14, 11, 2 that are 11, and 6. So I've got a child in elementary, middle, high school, public school, college, homeschool, Islamic school.
So you represent the whole community. Jazakallah khair.
I'm in every field. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah fikum. So subhanallah, as you can see, we have alhamdulillah a wonderful panel over here that represent every aspect of the learning experience our kids are going to be going through and are going to need from us, inshallah ta'ala, within the school year, bidnillah azza wa jal. When it comes to us as Muslims, we believe that education is an amana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us as parents, as the adults in the community, to take care of our children, take this responsibility so seriously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, all you who believe, you need to guard and protect yourself and protect those who are under your care, your family, your children, your spouses. Against what? Against the fire of hell. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. You protect yourself and your children, your families against Jahannam. So it's our duty, our responsibility to present the best path, inshallah, of guidance to our children. Of course, we don't own the results. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who owns the results. Our duty is just to present the best experience and the best example for our children, inshallah ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the hadith, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Each and every one of you is ra'an, which means like a shepherd, and you shall be questioned and asked about your flock, in this case, your children and your family. So we are responsible for our families, we are responsible for our children. It is an amana. Education is very important for us. Our deen is based off that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Have the knowledge that there is no God but one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best amongst you are those who learn the Quran and then teach it to others. So learning, teaching is very important. Our deen is very, very important for us as Muslims. However, we live in a society, subhanAllah, that the direction of that society probably maybe not necessarily serving that purpose for us. As much as we try as parents to prepare our children for the akhirah, we have so much pressure and so many challenges, in the process. Even if our kids go to Islamic schools, even if they're doing homeschooling, they're still part of the system, the educational system. So therefore, what can we do as parents, inshallah, and as community to prepare ourselves and our families, our children, for a strong start in the school year, inshallah. So with that, we said, alhamdulillah, we have a wonderful panel. You heard from them, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. And I would like to start, because many students, many parents, they ask, usually the most important things for them when the summer is over and their kids go to school, the first thing they ask about is salah. That's what they ask about. Sheikh, my kids, they're going to go to the school right now. Some of them, they go to public school, salah time. So how should we deal with the situation? So I would like to ask Sheikh Abdullah, in regards to the subject of salah, what do you think? What do parents should know about the challenges their kids go through? And what kids needs to know about the importance of salah for them when they go into the school?
I think from the parents, it's very important for the parents to know that the child in the beginning, being whether it's in middle school or high school even sometimes, is that they may feel a little bashful and a little shy when it comes to going into the front office, the administrator's office by themselves, telling the teacher, without the teacher knowing that they have to go and pray. Let's say Dhuhr. If Dhuhr comes in at 12:30 and it's at lunchtime, and by the time they get out of school, Asr is already coming in. It's important for a parent at the beginning of the year, if they're able to, which they should, is to go to the administrator's office and to let them know that my child is a Muslim, so there may be some dietary restrictions, and there also is a prayer, a service, that is offered in the middle of the day at this time, roughly from this time span. But it's preferable within that time span, if you will excuse him, if the time frame and you use the language that's something they can understand, the time frame that it would take someone to, go on a break, or someone that, they have to go on a restroom break, akramakumullah, that to go and make the prayer. So if it's possible that you can offer him, or a place for him or her to go and offer the prayer, that's something that is highly advisable for the parents to do in the beginning. It's highly advisable. So in these days, when you drop them off in the beginning, when they haven't found out their bus schedule, or you want to go and see their teachers, or to meet the teacher, open house, this is the time to disclose that to them. Just as when you get a new job, you want to disclose that to them also. It's the same situation. For the youth, it is not unusual for you to feel bashful in the beginning. It's not unusual. It's not a bad thing. But always, we as Muslims, when it comes to exemplifying or acting out our deen, or showing the things that may be abnormal or not usual to the non-Muslims in our area, it's just an awkward moment that will surpass. But after that, it will be something that they will know about you as a Muslim. So when it's time for you to leave class, they're going to say, oh, okay, oh, Ahmed, you're going to go do the prayer thing? It's something that they're going to get used to, and they're going to know, and hopefully one day they may ask you about it. So just getting past that awkward moment, if there is that awkward moment, it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves firstly, and it's something that as a Muslim, it will help maintain the integrity and the strength of your identity, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, barakallah fikum. Sister Tahsina, from a school's perspective, like basically from the law and the regulation in the school, is it even permissible for our students to pray? Is that a myth that no, you cannot pray at all, and you're not allowed even to take permission to go and pray and so on? So is that something that they can do or not?
That is absolutely something that they can do. So legally, the school is required to provide a space for the children to pray if they request it. And it's not just for Muslims, but any religious group that's on campus. If they ask for a space, a club, or an organization, then the school should provide that space for them. So as your children, as they're growing up and they're wanting to pray at school, or if they're starting to ask about that, what you can do is encourage them to go to the school, the administrators at the school, and request some space that they can have, maybe even at lunchtime, maybe an empty classroom where the children can go and have a space to pray. On Fridays, I've heard of public schools, even in this area, that provide a room for the kids to even have a little mini khutbah on Fridays, and they can do that as well. So,
Jazakallah khair. So, okay, so Sir Huma, as a parent right now, so we heard from the Imam, from school, it's permissible for them. As a parent, what would you advise other parents to support their kids when it comes to praying in school?
For middle school, I think it's a great idea for the parents to step in. With high school, what I did with my own child is I approached her and I said, do you want me to talk to the administration, or do you want to handle this yourself? And she said, Mama, I don't want you getting involved. I want to do this myself. So she went to the first day of school, she spoke to the librarian and said, I need a place to pray. She found a place to pray. Throughout the school year, she said, I don't always have time to go to the library. I pray in the art hallway. The art students are totally non-judgmental. They don't care what you're doing. Drawing from my own experience, I remember I used to pray in the ESL hallway in high school because the kids were all from out of the country, so they were used to different behavior. So with high school students, I think we should give them that choice, where what pace do they want to go, or what role do they want to play in securing their religious rights in their school.
No, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Now, from a psychological perspective, this conversation, as you have heard right now, the high school was probably different than the middle school. So they might feel embarrassed, bashful about their parents coming and talk on their behalf and so on. So how can we make this conversation between parents and children much easier? And what did you suggest for parents basically to let their kids talk to them? How can we make sure that the kids don't feel embarrassed or shy or even afraid to talk to their parents and be open with them?
So we're talking about in general, or?
In general, and particularly about this issue, for example. Like one of these issues is salah, but there are other things I'm sure that the parents need to know what's going on in their kids' life at school, especially if they go to public school. So how can we open a beautiful conversation between parents and them?
Sure. So I think the average American student spends 12,000 hours or so around from in school. And so when you get the answer, how was your day? What did you do? Nothing. I'm sure they did something within those 12,000 hours, right? Yeah. So I think that two mistakes that parents often fall into. One is being unapproachable, either by being too strict and when any problem comes up, you know, Mom, I like a guy in school, Dad, I like a guy in school, or a girl in school, whatever, right? They will, you know, freak out. They'll either yell or punish you, you're grounded. And so the message the child is getting is what? Don't approach Mom and Dad because you're just going to get in trouble. So get advice from somewhere else, right? Either that or the parents will worry so much that the child starts to get this anxiety that I don't want to trouble my parents anymore. They already have stress. I don't want to worry them more. So that's one mistake that I feel that parents fall into, which affects this openness between the child and the parent. The other, I think, mistake is that parents sometimes tend to use every single opportunity as a teaching opportunity. Every single opportunity as a lecture, right? So the child might want to talk just about their hobbies, and then the parent will turn that into, well, let's make more productive hobbies, like why don't you, you know, study math or science or this or that, right? And so the child will eventually get tired and say, look, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you, but everything that you tell me has to do with some type of lesson, so it no longer feels like a dialogue, it more feels like you're just telling me, you know, which direction to lead my life. And so then the child won't want to engage in more conversations. So those are the two basic mistakes that I've seen parents fall into. And just a quick book recommendation, actually, just with that specific title. I don't recommend too many books, but there's a very easy read about getting your child to open up more and also to implement rules. It's called How to Talk So Your Children Will Listen, So Your Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Your Kids Will Talk. How to Talk So Your Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Your Kids Will Talk. There's many versions of that book. It's a bestseller, but it's a very easy read. So, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sheikh Abdullah, so you heard right now that when it comes to conversation is very, very important. The Quran has one beautiful example of how parents and children, you know, have a conversation. In Surah Luqman, the story of Luqman is an example for this. I mean, Luqman himself, he started with certain priorities, and he made sure that his son, you know, understand things and so forth. So what kind of conversation do you believe or parents should have with their children, inshallah ta'ala? What should we focus on?
Definitely when it comes to conversation with the children, first, most importantly, as he said, subhanAllah, he made me look at myself as, you know, being that I'm a lecturer and I give classes and stuff like that, I know my son probably said, God, that's my dad. When he lectures me, you know, he asks what's the meaning of a word, and I go in the word in the Quran, and I say, with that, we should know this and this and that, and next thing you know, Salat al-Fajr has come. So I definitely understanding that, but what's most important is that really you teach passively. You take those opportunities to give lectures not lectures, I even said it again, to give advice on the things that matter, and primarily it's the connection with their God. But even before that, who is God and what does that even matter in my life, right? And that's why Luqman started off when he said, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. It said when Luqman admonished, or when Luqman gave advice to his son, he said, "O my son, do not associate partners with Allah, for verily shirk, associating partners with Allah, is a great oppression, or it's a great dhulm. And dhulm is putting something in its improper place." So talking to children about, or your children, or any child in particular, about the rights of the Creator over the creation in instances and things that happen in their lives. How do you tie that into their reality? The reality of a high school student is going to be different than the reality of a middle school student. And the reality of a first-generation American child is going to be different than your reality that came here to this country. So it's very important to understand their reality, to appropriate the concept of the creed of who Allah is and who He is not in a society to where they're just stripping your children layer by layer from the roots of their Islam. So primarily the issue of the creed is priority. Yes.
Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek. Thank you very much. Sister Huma, as a parent, now we heard that, you know what, we have to have a wonderful conversation between parents and their children. From your perspective, how much listening to your children is important as much as lecturing your kids? You know, listening to them when they talk. How important that is?
I think...
Turn on. Okay.
So every day after school, I think my homeschool kids don't need to talk to me at 3 o'clock, so they talk to me during the day. My high schooler comes home straight from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, a solid hour. She just talks, and I just listen. I maybe get 5 minutes in, but she just needs to talk. And I don't want to take that away from her because that means I know what's going on in her life, which means I don't have to say as much.
So what are they looking for when they talk to you as a parent? What exactly are they looking for? Are they looking for solutions, suggestions, or
I
what?
ask them, what did you do at lunchtime? And she'll tell me who she hung out with just because we're talking about lunch. And we'll talk about what happened in English class and how the teacher is funny. And most of the stuff has nothing to do with something very personal. She's just talking. But by and by, it'll also come in, well, there was a boy that sits with us at the lunch table, and he's gay. And then you can either let...
That conversation with her about it. No.
But most of the time when they say things like that, if I start talking about what Islam says about homosexuality, then the conversation is going to end right there. So I totally agree with Brother Uthman that a lot of it is just listening and not talking, and it's so hard because you have to bite your tongue.
Is it the same between mom versus dad when you talk, to the parent, to the father versus talking to the mother? How is the conversations different there?
I end up giving more lectures, and he ends up listening more, which is why when she comes home, she first goes in the office to talk to him. So I have to learn to, I'm learning how to just listen and thereby validate their experiences versus trying to control their experiences.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. Sister Tahsina, now in regards to, we've talked about the conversation that should take place between parents and their children. Now, as a teacher, how do you think that, conversation between parents and teacher complements this? It's very important, right? To have a lot of conversation between teachers and the parents. So how is that important?
That's very important because it lets your child know that when you're in communication with the teacher, you know what's going on. You're reading the newsletters that are sent home, for example. You're reading the emails. You're asking your children, oh, I heard something is happening, for example.
So you're telling me that reading that newsletter is important as well?
It is, because that's how the teacher is communicating with you, the parent.
But you know that most parents, unfortunately, don't read it sometimes,
I know, it
right?
gets in the folder, it gets sent home, and then it never gets touched. And I'm guilty of that as well, even as a teacher and a parent. But we do, as teachers, we spend a lot of time creating those communications, writing those emails. So taking some time as a parent to read those, respond to those, and then also making yourself present at the school. So coming to the back to school night, the open house, to parent-teacher conferences, introducing yourself to the teacher, or asking the teacher, how can I support what you're doing in the classroom at home? What can I do to help?
So what do you think of the teacher-parent conference? That's something really we should put in our schedule, in our program, because a lot of parents, I know they might get annoyed, right? Because if I have, mashallah, 5 kids, at home, that means I'm going to spend 5 hours, of my week just going back and forth to the school just to meet with the teachers. But is it that important to attend these teacher-parent conferences?
It's very important because it lets your children know, most of all, that you care about them, that you are interested in their learning, and that you're invested in what they're doing. As a teacher, we also know the parents really well, the ones that are coming consistently, regardless of their grades or whatever issues that they might be facing. We know who the parents are that are always going to be there at parent-teacher conference. We know the parents that are going to make that effort to even pop in for maybe 5 minutes, and you know that those parents are on top of their kids' work, or at least on top of their learning, and supporting what you're doing in the classroom.
Do you think, honestly, subconsciously, probably maybe, when teachers know that the parents come, very often to ask about their child, do you think the teacher is going to put maybe more or extra effort or give extra attention to this child because the parents care more?
Maybe not extra effort to the child necessarily, because then that would be unfair, but definitely putting in extra effort overall to all of the children. And when you're communicating, if you have any special issues or accommodations that you need for your children, if they're in public school and you're worried about if they're a Muslim, if they're being targeted, whatever issues that they might be facing, the teacher knows to look out for those certain things when it comes to your child.
Thank you very much. Sister Huma, as a parent, getting involved in the school, I know that's very important for, you said yourself earlier that, the high school kids, they don't want to see their parents very often into the school. Middle school kids, probably maybe they love that. Elementary, they want you to spend time in the classroom probably with them. So it's different, but how do you think why is it so important that parents should involve in school activities, school programs, and particularly probably maybe the PTO, the parent-teacher, organization?
I would add, even for college kids, it's important for parents to drop in on the campus. I think having a presence in your children's school helps them accept you as part of their life. So they know that they're comfortable with you. When you show that you're not violating their boundaries, you're going to be at their school, but you're not stepping into their friend zone, for instance, for older kids, whether it's college or high school. And then middle school, I think grade 7, 8, you start getting a little, conscious of that as well. But yeah, younger kids, they want you to move into the school and live there. So when you're there, you're showing, it starts from elementary that you show your kids, I've got your back. I'm going to be there for you whenever you face something that's fearful. That starts with school trips, going on school trips. And then with middle school, it could be being there for, even if it's the Christmas party, that you're showing that you're there. And so it's not something scary for them. It's something that they can do certain parts of and not do certain parts of, and you're part of that journey with them. I think for me, at least, that's the way I try to partner with my kids.
So parents, for example, it's good for them to participate in Teachers Appreciation Day, for example. Is that
totally.
Bring sandwiches or bring maybe biryani or something like that?
Maybe sandwiches.
Okay, sandwiches. Jazakallah khair. Brother Uthman, so as the conversation goes on between the kids and their parents and so forth, sometimes parents discover a few things about their children. Mistakes happened. They got into troubles. Now, we said that it's very important to have a healthy conversation, right? But now, how do you think parents should deal with these mistakes or these troubles when they find out that their kids went through these things? Because most parents might overreact a little bit. How can we, deal with these issues without causing damage to this relationship?
Right. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is not overreact. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with discipline as long as it's not done with anger, right? So depending on the child's age, what I usually recommend is having the child, especially if they're older, like middle school to high school, having the child kind of work through, okay, why what you did was wrong. Like, what do you think? Because now their sense of morality is developing, the prefrontal neocortex is developing, so their idea of these decisions will result in these consequences. So these type of conversations will help develop that, right? So what do you like? What do you think the punishment should be, or what? And obviously, they're going to say nothing, but but have them kind of think more than just this is something wrong that you did, and so
like learn a lesson at least.
Yeah, right. The younger kids respond more to this is a bad thing, this is a good thing. Their sense of morality is more towards Ahmed is a good boy or Ahmed is a bad boy, right? The other important, you can also take that as an important teaching opportunity, right? So one of the best things you can say to teenagers is, me too. I've also made mistakes in my life, right? And this is how I overcame them. So
connecting with their kids at this level.
Yeah, right. This is a complete tangent, but Sheikh Abdullah and I actually are both fond of a man by the name of Tim Ferriss. Like him, right? Yeah, and he interviews very successful CEOs and so on. And what he'll ask them often is, "What was your favorite failure?" Right?
Interesting.
What is your favorite failure? And all of them have profound answers. Right?
Because failure can be a learning opportunity, right?
Exactly.
Something that you realize, I would never repeat that again in my life and move forward.
So if we could help the children shift the conversation from, some type of, punitive, taking punitive measures to what can we learn from this? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about, the environment you were in? What do you need to change in order to avoid this mistake from happening again? That's much more valuable than, how dare you do this? This is a punishment.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh Abdullah, sometimes some of these mistakes, they're not just mistakes, they're sins. And specifically when kids go to college, when kids go to, high school, subhanAllah, under pressure, their iman, kind of goes down, their moral compass, can shift somewhere else, and then they make mistakes, really serious mistakes. We consider them sin, obviously, whether it's drinking or being, with someone, in a haram way and so forth. So what do we do? How can we advise these kids, to deal with it? Do you go with guilt tripping? Do we keep telling them ittaqillah? What is the best way we can handle this situation, bring them back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
The first thing is to let them know, from my perspective, is just to remind them and yourself that they're human and that they are born to make mistakes. What's most important is, what do you do after that mistake? Do you recognize that it's a mistake? And that a mistake is, just as many of us probably know, John Maxwell has a book called Failing Forward, right? That you fail and you make the mistake is a condition for refinement and for being resilient, getting back up. So it's when you realize you make that mistake, how do you get back up? We know in Islamic perspective, it's still far. It's seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you see that mistake, you say astaghfirullah, and you think and you ponder over it, and you know that you can always grow. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-wasi', and He is al-ghafur, al-ghafar. He forgives you, but what's most important is that there's a small window for you to make the effort.
So basically giving them hope.
Giving them hope. No,
Is that giving hope more important than, make them admit their faults and then kind of get being punished for it?
Exactly. Well, they admit their faults to their Creator, and then and have hope that He'll forgive them. So
And
exactly
Allah
right.
subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim. Who are we to be
Exactly.
judgmental to that level, subhanAllah?
Exactly.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. Barakallah feekum. Sister Tahsina, as a teacher, now we have seen that a lot of things happen because probably maybe there is disconnect between parents and their children in regards to what's going on in the school. So that's the parents' responsibility to connect, with the teacher to make sure that what they present in the classroom is also strategies that we understand. So what do you suggest as a parent, basically? What should they be looking for to happen in the classroom? And what strategies, techniques should the teacher be using? I mean, what message do you send to these parents?
So as a parent, you should be asking the teacher, what strategies are you using in the classroom? What techniques do you use? What do you use to help encourage the learning? So nowadays, what teachers should definitely be using and what you should be looking for is cooperative learning strategies, group work, partner work, any opportunity for students to use inquiry, research, and to build on their learning in independent ways. So you want to ask the teacher, what kinds of activities are they doing? Are they doing projects in class? It's called project-based learning. Are they doing inquiry? You want to look for these types of techniques in the classrooms.
What if some of these techniques, probably for some parents, maybe, I don't know if my kids should be doing this stuff, or like, for example, drawing, human faces and so on, or maybe playing instrumental music and so on, and parents are conservative in this area, so they don't want to deal with that stuff. Do you think, basically, by law, do parents have the right to go to the teacher and maybe require something else, write a paper instead, or maybe alternative, project? Do they have the right to do that?
They do have the right to do that. So if there's anything that they're doing in class, even a book that they're reading that you're not comfortable with, communicate to the teacher that this is not something that you would like your child to participate in, and ask for an alternative assessment or an alternative activity that they can do. And the school and the teacher should be able to provide that for them.
So that's wonderful. So as a parent right now, Sister Homa, if you have alternative right now, you don't have to always go with what the teacher might say. So in this case, how can we communicate? What is the best way to communicate with the teacher in regard to these issues? What do you suggest?
I think it depends on which level schooling you're at. Private schools, Islamic schools, sometimes the easiest thing is to just walk into the office and talk to the administrators because they're smaller. With public schools, again, with elementary, sometimes middle school, they're more approachable. High school, it's very difficult. Usually, I use email to communicate with the teachers. In the past, what I've experienced, email has worked across the board with all the teachers. You respect their time, and they're able to get back to you peacefully when they have a chance to think it over. It's a good first way to contact the teachers, and then if that doesn't work, then you can step in, talk to an administrator if there's no response coming in.
Some people, they might have some issues with that because they're not tech savvy. Or probably their language, they have a language barrier. Their English language is not as proficient as great as it's supposed to be. So what do you suggest for these parents who might feel bashful, kind of like, they might understand me, so what do you suggest for them?
Talk to a guidance counselor. That's a secondary form of contact where you can make an appointment and talk to the guidance counselor. Some teachers you can't make appointments with, from my experience. If you can, then in person, talk to them. Another way to communicate with teachers, I think, is, they have a lot of mediums like Schoology or Remind app where the teachers are able to keep in touch with the parents.
So nowadays,
so
even you can do it from the convenience of your bed. Just grab the phone on the app and send message to the teacher right away, right?
Correct.
But we just need to be tech savvy, right?
I think actually the schools are sending home technology assessments to find out what is the level of tech savviness of the parents so that they can accommodate parents at that level. If they're not tech savvy, then they give you different options.
No.
But I think these days we're going to have to learn how to use technology to stay part of our children's lives.
No, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Now, talking about technology, since we talk about technology right now, I want to continue with you a little bit. How much time should we give our children on technology, the iPad? Because schools provide the kids with iPads, they provide them with Chromebooks and laptops and so on. How much time do you think that the kids should have access to this technology?
I don't think there's a straight answer to that because it depends on your relationship with your child, and child to child, each child is different. So for younger kids, I try to limit my elementary child to half an hour to an hour of electronic usage, and that doesn't always work. But I try. That's my aim. Middle schoolers, a little more. But for high schoolers, it's very hard. I mean, if you can try to limit them as much as you want, but if you don't have that conversation where we have a relationship of trust, if you're on social media, include me in on it so I know what's going on. If you're using the internet, let's do it in a public area, not in your bedroom. And then telling them trust. I mean, I tell my children, trust takes a long time to build up. Once I trust you, we're in a good place, but it'll just take one instance to break that trust. So be careful of that.
Thank you very much. Brother Uthman, from that perspective of trust, it's very tricky because you want to protect your child, but at the same time, you also want to give them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and so on. So how can we create this balance between trusting our children and letting them know that we trust you, but at the same time not losing track and control of the situation, circumstances?
Right. No, I think you gave a very wonderful answer to that. I mean, there's it depends on the age, right, as far as how much leeway you're going to give to the child. But there's a fine line between being a friend and being a parent, right? Okay. And so, while you want to, be that good listener and so on, and you also have to remind them that yes, but there are still rules, there are still a certain structure that you have to follow, right? So do
you think it's a good idea for the parents to just stay friends with their older children, or do they need to continue to be parents no matter what?
I think it should transition more and more into giving the child that loosening the rope a little bit to help them have freedom in making decisions and so on. Help them to be partners in decision making. Sometimes even simple stuff. Where do you want to go eat today, or what how do you think we should approach this, right? But at the same time, you're still overseeing everything. They don't have free reign. If that makes sense.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh Abdullah, now in that kind of conversation, obviously, one thing that is very important that our kids usually forget when it comes to parents trying to give instruction or guide their children and so forth, the obedience and birrul walidain. Now, a lot of parents during school year, subhanAllah, they realize that their kids' akhlaq, their kids' manners are changing and shifting. They're no longer the same sweet kids they were in the summer, mashallah. They go with us to the masjid easily. You tell them to read the book, they read it. You hold the mushaf, they do so. But the moment school starts, subhanAllah, everything starts shifting and changing. So what reminder should we give the children, at least the youth specifically, that teenagers, in regards to the importance of their parents into their life in the dunya and the akhirah?
I think, subhanAllah, that's a good question. When it comes to in regards to the parents when they're in school, subhanAllah, I think, touching on the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being that He is Ar-Razaq and that He has provided you, with parents initially, because there are some people that don't have a father. Some individuals that don't have a mother, and they will encounter this in school with their classmates, with some of their friends, from some of the ways that they may act, so on and so forth. So just to be thankful that they have parents in their lives, or they have guardians in their lives, because some of them may not have them like that, and recognizing that those guardians that, look, I'm only here because I love you and I want what's best for you. As long as you can remember that and we can agree on that premise, there are going to be things that you may not understand that I may do, and I may be wrong on some of those things. And as Brother Uthman alluded to, he mentioned that, sometimes me too, I will make mistakes, but let's go together throughout this process, but understand my position and understand that I have a general concern that probably no one in this dunya will have for you other than me.
So do you believe that obviously no matter what happens, our kids are still amana, and parents should not forget that these kids are still our amana, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted us, with these kids and how to take care of them. So what advice would you tell the parents to keep in their mind that no matter what happens, these kids are still our amana?
Exactly that.
That is
Exactly
amana.
that. Yeah, exactly that they are a trust and that we will be asked in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about them and what they do. But there's a certain point, there's a certain threshold where they will be held responsible. And that's why you see the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said, order your children to pray at the age of 7 and be a little more aggressive upon them at the age of 10. It's really an advice to the parents that, look, it's a gradual process that takes conditioning and repetition, and throughout this process, there will be trial and error. But as long as there's communication and continuation, that's what's important.
Naam, Jazakallah khair. Brother Uthman, when our kids go to school, and obviously, like we said, their attitude changes, their akhlaq, their manner changes, and so on, and that hits their self-esteem sometimes. A lot of the things, a lot of kids, they start living double life. At school, they're different creatures than when they are at home. Sometimes girls, they come out from the house with their hijab on, and they go to school, they remove their hijab. The boys, mashallah, and at home, tabarakallah, the kids might be hafid even. And they go to school and suddenly they act like, oh my God, they're out of this world. So this must be something to do with their portrayal of self-confidence of themselves. What can we do in order to help our kids stay confident of who they are, their identity, their faith, identity, and so forth? Boost their identity, basically, and also their confidence. What parents should know about how to help their kids as well to do that?
So the first question I think to ask is, why do they feel the need to live double lives? Right? Are they so scared of sharing with their parents some of the stuff which is going on in school that they have to put on a facade at home?
I see.
Right? So I think that's probably the first and probably the most important question to ask.
No.
Right? Now, as far as self-esteem is concerned, there's two basic. I think, as far as psychological development is concerned, right? And I don't want to get too technical, but I will. I want to sound smart, even though I'm not. Right?
Yes, you are.
There's two basic psychology concepts, which I think that we have to, as we're growing them intellectually, to instill in our children. One is known as self-differentiation. You guys can write this down. If you Google it, there's a lot on this. Self-differentiation. Self-differentiation is basically the idea of how can I differentiate between my intellectual reasoning and my emotional reasoning, right? So imagine a child which is able to, eventually learn the skills to be able to act on their intellect over their emotions and know the difference and know that, and then the second aspect of self-differentiation is how do I find myself unique from others, and how am I able to separate myself from, groupthink and like this idea of, well, I'm just going to think like everyone else. I need to look like everyone else. I need to act like everyone else, right? So this is known as self-differentiation, right? The second psychology concept is self-actualization, right? And I'm sure you studied a little bit of this with Maslow, and right?
No.
So self-actualization is more of the idea of, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I know who I am as a person, and so therefore, because I know who I am, nobody else is going to pressure me into me being somebody who I'm not.
Like be authentic and be
Be
original.
authentic, right? Yeah, be authentic, yeah.
No.
So these are the true basic things that you want to strive for. It's always a work in progress, right? It's being a parent
Does it work?
but
Does it work through reading books?
What is it?
Does it work through reading books?
Does it work through reading books? Well,
Can you build this confidence just by suggesting books, basically?
No.
So it has to be practice.
Yeah, it's also practice, and also the other thing is how confident are the parents?
Ah.
How confident?
So it
are
goes
the
back
parents?
to the parents in the first place.
Yeah. Children, they follow what they see more than what they hear. Right?
So since we talk about the parents' confidence right now,
Yeah.
we mentioned earlier a question to Sister Huma about parents who might have language barrier.
Sure.
They feel shy, they feel embarrassed, and so on. What do you tell these parents who feel shy to go to the school because they don't think they can communicate effectively? Maybe they have a heavy accent, maybe they don't even know much English and so forth. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to embarrass their children, so therefore they decide to cut themselves off completely from the communication with the school. What do we tell these parents?
Tell the parents.
The
that we want
parents,
to have,
because we need their confidence as well, right?
Right. So I mean, first of all, their child's needs should trump, and I hate using that actually, but should trump their own insecurities, right?
No.
Number one, right? Number two, just I remember.
So you're asking the parents to make an extra sacrifice.
Yeah,
basically.
to make an extra sacrifice, right? And also, it sends a message, right? That like even I mean, my mother has always had like a very thick accent, but I mean, she will talk to whoever, and it showed me that I shouldn't be embarrassed of my heritage.
SubhanAllah.
Right? That's the lesson without her even having to say it.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah.
No. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Please, Sheikh.
No, this is something I'm very passionate about because I'm a first-generation American. Both of my parents are from Ghana, and I embraced Islam. And subhanAllah, I remember when I'd come home, on Sundays after church, we go to the grocery store. I didn't want to wear the dashiki. I didn't want to wear the colorful shirt. When I go to school, my mother would make me wear the dashiki, but I'd have a shirt under the Nike shirt in my bag, the Adidas shirt. I changed my hair a certain way, And subhanAllah, after becoming Muslim, I saw that. How you mentioned with sisters, I didn't know that a lot of people were Muslim until I got out of school and became a Muslim, and I saw them. I was like, you were a Muslim. And I see this is very important for parents to know. I'm realizing that, me dealing with converts a lot is this first-generation American reality. It's very important for parents to understand what it's like to live as a youth in this country and to be in a public school and even in an Islamic school. Because the culture it goes across the board in an Islamic school or a non-Islamic school. So it's very important to understand and embrace that reality and not try to think to ourselves, I want to prohibit my kids from encountering certain things, but rather when they encounter it, how do I react? So just wanted to touch on that because just like he mentioned with the self-actualization and self-differentiation, it's going to be different from culture to culture. And I think that's very important to understand that.
And our kids live even sometimes, subcultures within the same household.
Exactly, and they don't know which one to choose. They don't know which one to choose. They don't know when to turn one off and to turn one on. So they're going to eventually just turn one off and be I am who I am. And religion or without religion.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Barakallah fiqh. Yes, please.
So I also wanted to add, as a teacher, you can see how many different groups are formed in the school. And even as a person who's grown up in public schools, but now I teach at an Islamic school, it doesn't matter whether or not you're going to a public school or an Islamic school. There's so many different pressures that a child is facing from social media, from other people. You want to assimilate, you want to be a part of the culture. And as parents, we're very concerned about our children holding on to our values and to our deen and our principles. So when you see your child struggling with these different issues, trying to fit in, when they're asking, why can't I do this? Why can't I go to this event? You want to keep the door of communication always open with them. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them who their friends are. Take a vested interest in what it is that they're involved in without being overbearing, but just being their friend, just talking with them, and understand that growing up in America in this society is very, very hard. They're going to face all of these different pressures, and just trying to balance everything as a child, as a teenager, is extremely difficult.
Sister Huma, as a parent, one of the biggest pressures we get, and I'm going to come back to, inshallah, Sister Tahseen about it, the outfit. One of the things our kids, they have issues with, specifically, the boys can blend in, frankly. They wear shorts, they put, Nike or Adidas shirt, and that's it, you blend in. Our sisters, no matter how much they try, alhamdulillah, if they adhere to the faith and they put on their hijab, they can be singled out easily within thousands of of students in the class or in the school. So, what suggestions would you give to the parents in regards to choosing the best outfit that makes our kids feel comfortable, but at the same still, keeping it, alhamdulillah, shar'i and in the guidelines of shari'ah?
Just to go back to my own experience to start with, in my high school, we had about 10 to 12 sisters who would come into the school in a burqa and hijab, and I never saw them again because they would go single file into the bathroom, and there was a whole elaborate scheme they had with non-Muslim friends about storing clothes in their houses, and they'd bring the outfits, and it was just very elaborate and amazing.
Oh, subhanAllah.
So having seen that, with my children, I understand they're wearing hijab. We make an effort at the beginning of every school year, and this is part of our back-to-school program, is to go shopping for trendy but modest outfits. So letting them choose what their style is. One of my girls is very feminine. She wears very feminine clothes. The other one, she's not. So yes, it's really hard finding jeans for her because all the jeans out there are skinny jeans. So we've had to compromise on boyfriend jeans, but then boyfriend jeans are cropped this season. So finding boyfriend jeans that are long, talk to other parents, talk to other moms who are shopping for their girls. Like, where did you find those jeans? But making that effort to let them choose what they wear and then teaching them the guidelines. You teach them the guidelines.
So it's okay to wear colorful hijab?
Okay. Colorful, printed, as long as it's covering.
No.
My generation was told to wear shalwar kameez to school. So like Brother Uthman was talking about, that, mixing culture and religion. So what are the religious parameters? And then, okay, so I may have to step back from what I thought the religious parameters were because it was culturally tainted, and I've had to adapt to, okay, if it's halal, then I have to accept it, whether I like it or not. I wasn't allowed to wear jeans because my dad didn't like jeans. He didn't like black hijabs because in Pakistan, the Shia women wear black hijabs. We can't carry that baggage here.
I see. So as a school, though, so now as a school, for example, I'm sure schools has guidelines in terms of outfits, in terms of clothes and so forth. Do they have anything against wearing hijab?
They don't. And they shouldn't, at least. However, as a girl that is wearing hijab, sometimes you can be the only person in a classroom or the only person in a cafeteria with something wrapped around your head, making you feel uncomfortable when everybody else is seemingly free.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult. So what you can do as a parent, if you have a young child or a teenager, somebody who's getting into hijab and asking, have them go shopping and look for the things like Sister Homa was mentioning, look for outfits that are trendy but modest and reasonable. Social media is also not always a terrible thing. It's not always bad. There are some really great role models on social media where they can, where these girls can get inspiration, confidence, and ideas of how to dress from.
So, please.
I just wanted to add that buying the modest and trendy outfits is expensive.
Okay.
So if you're
we need budget for that.
Yeah, you need to accept that fact. A lot of girls that are my daughter's peers, they tell me, well, my closet is full of leggings.
True.
So I wear leggings because their parents haven't offered them the options. They haven't bought them the options. So yeah, that's going to go back on us.
I'm with you, subhanAllah. I've been struggling for the past few weeks to find a good skirt that goes with the shirt, the uniform shirt, for example, because there is really nothing that is to our standards. So we go online even, and we find a lot of things, but we don't even know how it's going to fit in. And so, subhanAllah, so it's really, really difficult for people to find it, if you want to maintain a certain level of modesty. Jazakallah khair. Now, we don't want to give marketing right now for any brands. He's asking, can you suggest any brands or any stores where they can?
Forever 21. Go to Forever 21 and H&M.
Okay.
Yeah, Forever 21 and H&M for Muslim women
we should
have so many modest outfits.
We should get something out of this advertising right now. Okay, so Brother Uthman, if I want to say, Brother Uthman, so our sister, they're going to go wearing their hijabs. Some of our brothers, mashallah, they're very, alhamdulillah, conservative, they're very modest, and they're very courageous, really. They're teenagers, but they want to grow their beards, mashallah. When everybody else is clean shaving and then so and so. They get into some situation might lead to bullying. Just because of the color of their skin, sometimes because of their wearing a beard, or even a sister wearing hijab and so on. So they go through bullying. What do you suggest? How can we handle the situation?
Sure. Yeah. So it's obviously, it's not just limited to Muslims, and it's not just limited to having a beard or hijab. I mean,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, bullying has become an epidemic, and now with the advent of the internet, the cyberbullying, there's so
it's nonstop.
It's nonstop. It's nonstop, and unfortunately, there have been cases of suicide because of this, and there's been a lot of horrible things which happen because of this.
And so you don't think the Muslim community is immune of this?
Of course not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I get cases like this where a child will have developed depression or anxiety, or even sometimes physical symptoms due to the bullying.
Even kids can get depression?
Yes, even kids can get depression.
Subhanallah.
Yes.
No.
So a few things, right? Obviously, if things ever get physical, or the child is actually being, physically hurt, you want to make sure there's open communication with the teacher, with the school counselor. Let them know that there's no shame in talking to an adult, right? That doesn't always work, right? So you also, you know, again, this is also a fine line between, you also want to teach your child to be able to stand up for themselves, right? Not physically, right? But to be able to, like, bullies feed off of low self-esteem. Bullies feed off of, you know, people which don't know how to stand up for themselves, right? So, and you're not always going to be there for them. You don't want to be that helicopter parent which is, you know, fighting all of their fights for them because you're not teaching them anything, right? So you want to teach the child how to give, you know, not vulgar but smart responses. How to deal with, you know, if somebody you know, talks to you in this way, what's the best way you can? And I've actually worked with parents where I've even had them model. You know, so if somebody says this and this to you, how will you respond, right? And so then the child learns, okay, you know, I have more confidence now. I'll be able to respond in this way, or say, you know, show that I'm not bothered by this. In fact, I have just a smart response. My adopted niece Mela, she came from Pakistan 5 years ago. Thick accent, you know, grammar mistakes, but she is so sharp, mashallah. Nobody will mess with her. Nobody. She has a tongue on her, and she's not vulgar. But her and I, we go back and forth, right? And so you know, anytime she'll be like, you know, guess what? This guy tried to ask me out. Oh my God, I told him off. I'm like, great.
So do you think that if parents involve their kids with some extracurricular activities or maybe after-school programs, for example, like a Toastmaster, for example, program, where they can learn something to speak, or even go to martial arts, for instance, would that boost their morale and confidence?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you recommend something like this for the parents?
Yeah, I mean, if the child is interested in that, right? You know, again, it's more on what the child is interested in, and then let them be proud of that one thing that they're doing. Let that be, you know, something that defines them, even if it's drama club, or even if it's, you know, STEM, whatever it might be. But then let them be proud of that and say, you know, this is who I am. Let somebody say something about it.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Homa, as a parent, how can you fit that in the schedule? It's going to go crazy, right? I mean, they have homework. They sometimes, especially the high schoolers, they come late from school sometimes. You know, they have a lot of things to do. How can, as a parent, you organize all of these things, you know, in the rest of the day for you?
So the first thing we do for back-to-school shopping is we go to Michael's and we all buy schedule books. So we're really big on that in our family. Personally, I have to manage all the kids' schedules and my own. But I find that as a parent, our job is to give our children the tools to help them succeed to the best of their potential. But their potential won't be achieved if they're not able to learn time management skills. I find stress increases, and our job is to help them manage stress and to lower the stress. So I feel like schedule books help. I use a whiteboard in our house to write down activities so they know what's coming up, when homework has to be done by. We try to come to the masjid for classes, but if it's a homework night, I have to be flexible as a parent to say, okay, you have a test coming up, you have a lot of homework piled up, we need to reduce your stress, not increase your stress level. So we won't do that activity today, we'll be a little bit more flexible. We also have discussions in the beginning. Last week, school started for us on Wednesday. So Monday, I sat down with my children and we all opened our schedule books. We put down in when swimming was because they wanted to do swimming. And what else do you need? So the high schooler wanted to try KD prep classes, so we had to schedule those in. So scheduling things in, organizing your time, organizing their time without making sure it's not too heavy, it's a priority for me at least in our family.
Does it take too much on you, based in terms of driving them around and taking them to these places and all that stuff and so on? It does, right?
Yeah, it does. It's exhausting at times.
So what do you do as a parent to decompress?
I ask for help. I ask my father-in-law to help me. I ask my daughter to help. I try to divide up the jobs so it's not all on me.
So it's not bad to ask for help. It's not bad to create support group, whether from family members or friends, right?
And I'll order in dinner if I'm overwhelmed. And it was something that I carried around as a guilt, that I need to provide the food. But I've learned to step back and say, okay, this is too much for me. And then I start snapping at the kids. So we're going to order in dinner today. I'm going to leave the dishes in the sink today. So I let things go because our schedule has gotten very busy.
Do you let your high school kids participate in the house chores?
We have a chore chart.
So you do?
Yes.
Okay. How important that is to keep things in order and so on?
The chore chart gets followed very loosely. It's there, so but they don't always follow it. But it's there as a principle. So it tells them you do have chores. yes, I'm flexible with letting chores slide, but it's there as a principle. We've made it a lot more loose because now the older ones in their senior year in college, so you two have dinner, you two have lunch, something like that.
At least we do our part as parents, right? You need to do your part and so on. That's it.
That's a tool.
Now, how
teaching
they
them to do
it,
housework.
yeah, wonderful. Now, as a teacher, Sister Tahsina, how much parents should focus on the issue of homework? Some parents, they think homework it's like a sacred thing, that if my kids miss homework, oh my God, it's a disaster. So they put their kids under so much pressure and so on. Some parents are extremely overachievers, which means they want their kids to get A+ all the time. Give us an idea. What is homework for the learning process? Is it something like Quran, that they have to do it, or has another purpose for the teacher or for the school?
The purpose, from a teacher's perspective, of giving homework is to reinforce the learning that's happening in the classroom. A chance for your students to practice, to further expand their knowledge on something, to do some reading that is outside of the classroom so that they can gather some information or read a chapter, let's say, from a book, and then they'll apply that knowledge when they get to the classroom. So from a teacher's perspective, we're assigning the homework so that we can extend the learning beyond the classroom and have the students really practice. Now, there is the question of how much homework is too much homework, and how much should you be helping your children with their homework. So there is a difference between supporting your children with their homework or taking too much responsibility from them for their homework,
like
doing their homework for them, basically. So don't do your child's science fair project for them. But encourage them, show interest in what they are learning, ask them what they're learning about, ask them what they need for homework that night. If they need a special place at home to do homework, for example, give them that area, help them remove any distractions, and know that when it comes to homework also, don't expect or demand perfect grades on either the homework or on any exam or assignment that they may have. Encourage them. If they make mistakes, that's great. Help them learn from those mistakes, right? And stay away from criticizing them or demanding that straight A, that well-rounded resume, perfect grades or whatever it might be. Help them along the process. Encourage them when they might fail, and keep giving them chances.
That's wonderful. But now, what's the difference, or how can we balance between grades versus social skills?
Well, both are important, especially nowadays.
Because there's homework for grades, right? But how can we work on social skills for our children in the learning process?
So working on social skills would be things like communicating often and encouraging them to communicate for themselves too, advocating for themselves. If they have any issues, rather than, as your children are getting older, especially when they're maybe in high school, tell them to reach out to the teacher themselves. Send an email or to the admin, or go to the admin directly and communicate whatever issues that you may have. Let them learn that responsibility, those social skills, that self-advocacy that will help them become successful, not just in school, but also beyond the school walls.
Wonderful. Now, Brother Uthman, I'll go back to you right now with the same point right now. Many parents, they focus on success in terms of grades, in terms of, passing the grade level and the exams and quizzes and so forth, but they might not pay attention too much for the social skills. What advice would you give to the parents in regards to focusing on that?
Right. I mean, just as both sisters were saying now, it's actually becoming more and more important to have those social skills for career success, right? So something like emotional intelligence, right? It's being taught in law school now. It's being seen as a necessary skill.
Can you explain to us what that is for parents to know what that is?
Emotional intelligence, in layman's terms, is basically the ability to understand your own emotions and other people's emotions and manage them in a healthy manner, right? So this is not something you're going to get just out of reading a textbook, but it's through social interactions. It's through understanding your feelings, understanding others' feelings, right? So they look for this, and even a lot of Fortune 500 companies now are looking for this quality in like upper level management and so on.
Where can parents find these things? These instruments to learn, about emotional intelligence and so forth. I know you're one of the experts in the area that people can come to you, inshallah, and have one-on-one sessions and bring their kids probably to you and so forth. But is there any other resources that people can go to?
Come to my class?
Come your class. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, but so we establish classes for this, inshallah, for parents to come and attend bidnillah azza wa jal, inshallah ta'ala. Sheikh Abdullah, now we're coming closer to the end, inshallah ta'ala. We're coming close to the end, so we're going to, after a couple, 3 minutes, inshallah, we're going to open the floor for any questions from you guys, inshallah, to ask the panel. But Sheikh, now I know that parents are so big on keeping the spirituality high in the life of their children when the school starts. And as parents start dropping off their kids to these schools and public schools in particular, subhanAllah, they make dua, Ya Allah, preserve our children. Ya Allah, guide their hearts and so on. So what can we tell the parents to maintain with their children? Do they have to have a very strong schedule of reading Quran and doing tahajjud and fast Mondays and Thursdays? What can we equip our kids with as simple, easy, effortless probably, but at the same time effective in maintaining a healthy relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the school year?
You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the hadith, "Ibda'u bima bada Allahu bihi." It's very important to understand how, Islam even sets priorities. From the priorities is the pillars of Islam. So most importantly is the creed and them understanding who Allah is and who He is not and how they actualize that in their life. And then the second pillar is the best form of actualization of that first pillar, which is the prayer. Primarily, since the children go to school in the morning, it's sitting down with them individually and collectively as a family, because each child is different. This one may be like his father when it comes to the issue of waking up in the morning. He's a light sleeper, but like his mother in this instance. But the other child is totally opposite. So knowing how to appropriately communicate to each child that is conducive to their reality and to the way Allah has created them. So for instance, in this issue, I would primarily focus on things such as Salatul Fajr. That's where I talk to this child, say, look, you make Salatul Fajr, inshallah, we'll go to Chick-fil-A or go to wherever on the way to school. Or today, after school, whatever they cherish, give them some form of responsibility that if you fulfill this, you receive this reward. Mm-hmm. And then also when it comes to, subhanAllah, just reminding them that, look, you're on your own, when it comes to school, and I trust you, as the sister mentioned, the issue of trust, if they're in high school, and if they're younger, just to remind them basic, talk and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the names of Allah, that He is Sami', He is Al-Basir. If you hear someone bad talk about someone else, just say, I wouldn't want someone to talk bad about me like that. Acknowledging the fact that they may make mistakes. And what I always tell parents, khitam, is that the rides to and from school are so valuable to have passive conversation on things that matter. No. And I think that's very important. You see the Prophet ﷺ did that with Mu'adh bin Jabal when he said, he took advantage of the opportunity of asking them questions and probing their mind and letting them speak, which further empowers them and makes them autonomous.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, now what do you think of dhikr? How important the dhikr in the life of these young ones, in the morning, in the evening, and so on?
Definitely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. It says, remember me and I'll remember you. Dhikr is very important. As I always say, we have to reflect in order to connect. So reflecting is a key and a leeway to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you see things at school, you see a good grade, you worked hard, you got a 95, you say, MashaAllah, and you think about what that even means. Mm-hmm. I remember, and I'll stop here. I remember when I was listening to Islam and people were telling me about Islam, and they kept saying, Inshallah, Inshallah, Inshallah. And I was like, what does that mean? And they said, that's if Allah wills. I said, so you mean to say within your regular conversation, you say if God wills, if God wills, if God wills? They're like, yeah. And I said, oh man, this is the.
So remember the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regular basis. Early in the morning before they go to school, they start with morning dhikr, and then sometimes we remind them when they eat, when they come into the house and leave the house. Remember the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they come back before they go to sleep, these are very important to preserve and protect them throughout the day and throughout the evening, inshallah.
Definitely.
Barakallah fikum, inshallah. So jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for all of you for being here with us, inshallah. I would like now to see if we have any questions coming from our audience in regards to how to prepare for the school. Again, we have our wonderful panel over here. Alhamdulillah, Brother Uthman is a family therapist. We have Imam Abdullah over here. He's, alhamdulillah, the Imam of Coppell and Louisville. Also, Sister Tahsina, she's a teacher, high school teacher, taught in public school and in Islamic school right now, currently. And Sister Huma, mashallah, a veteran of the community, alhamdulillah, and as a parent as well, fadlullahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, representing all different school grades, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. So do you have any question from you guys? Yes, young man. technical question from this young man goes to the teacher, obviously. It says that which one is more important? Is the elementary school more important than the middle school, high school, or which one is more important? Yes.
Thank you for your question. That's a really great question. I would say that elementary school is so important because it sets the foundation for all of those other years, for middle school and for high school. So elementary school is where you learn those basic reading, writing skills, the math skills, the foundations of what it is that you need to learn and have in middle school and high school. So you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up as a kid, and as a parent, you want to set your kid up too with those study skills, organization habits, encouragement that they need to really set themselves up properly. Also take some time in choosing the best school for your child. Sometimes it might vary. You might want to go to Islamic school, maybe public school could be the best option for you, or even homeschool, as Sister Homa does for her daughter.
So it depends on the child and the resources available for the parents.
Resources available, their interests, what their needs are as well.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Jama'ah? Sisters, do you have any questions? MashaAllah. So that means we covered everything. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Yes, go ahead. I see. So the second grade, the child right now is start getting introduced to programs or actually activities such as the evolution theory, for example, and so on. So how, as parents, how can we maybe counter these theories and these actual discussions in our household? So first of all, as a teacher, is it a must? Do they have to learn these things?
Well, in public schools, there is a certain curriculum that they have to follow. So there are certain standards and things that the teacher has to address according to the administrator, according to the district where they might be. In different environments, in charter schools or in private schools, they have a lot more leeway. So they can choose what they want to present or how they want to present the information.
So there's no escape usually from these things because part of the curriculum.
If it's in public school, sometimes there is no escape.
Okay, so Sheikh, as the Imam right now, parents, they want to know how to handle these issues. Do you think it's a good idea for them to bring their child to the Imam? Or should they have the conversation themselves, and the Imam can help them with it?
It should be both. It should be the second. I mean, well, definitely depending on the severity of the situation and the knowledge of the parent. I mean, sometimes the parent needs to get educated in whatever subject matter, and then to where they can properly address that to their children. Or if there's a communication barrier, depending on the imam and his knowledge and his understanding of the subject matter, there should be a cooperation between all three. Definitely.
But alhamdulillah, we're good over here. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. So we have you here. So you suggest, alhamdulillah, that parents, if they have these issues, talk to the imam. Let them give you the right information, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. And hopefully you can convey that message to the children. Since it's just barely the second grade, it's an easy thing to discuss, inshallah ta'ala, versus when it's actually higher grades in school and so on.
If I can add to that
Please.
as well. Also, maybe don't rush to the imam as well, not to downplay that, but also be that resource and that guidance for your kid directly. So talk to them about it. Some of my high schoolers, we've talked about this in my English class. They want to know how can they talk to their parents about issues that they might face. When they're in public school, there's so many different things that are going to be around them: homosexuality, open lifestyle, whatever it might be, things that they're going to encounter. And you don't want to have, when your child comes to you, you don't want to, present yourself as being scared or afraid and, okay, let's go to the masjid and let's talk to the imam right away. But be open, hear them out as much as you can with whatever Islamic knowledge that you have. Teach them the beauty of Islam from home and show them how understanding Islam is and how open and how basically just how open that you can be.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead. No. How old your daughters are?
So I have a
So we have 7-year-old daughter and 11-year-old daughter. Now you just came back from living overseas, and now they're back here to the U.S. right now. They're going to school. They go public school or Islamic school? So charter school, right? So they're going semi-public charter school. And you're already freaking out.
I'm already freaking out because, you know, the things that are here that are going on, even supposedly,
No.
sure that it's charter school, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm still.
But still, you're very concerned as a parent. Okay. They have to go to school, right? So. Let's hear it from a parent. How about that? Parent who has, alhamdulillah, 5 kids, and they have homeschool, they have charter school, public school. Let's hear from the parents, inshallah ta'ala. What advice can they give you in regards to make it easy on you, inshallah? That transition becomes easy for you. Bismillah.
Actually, I have 5 daughters. So one thing I've learned, both as a parent and as a child of immigrant parents, I grew up here and I went to public school here, is any parenting decision that comes from a place of fear always backfires. So anything you do because you're scared of what might happen, it might just happen. Because you're opening that door for them, because this might happen. So I'm going to pull you back like in a rubber band, and you're not always going to be able to hold that rubber band. They're going to shoot right through that door. So talk to them about that issue. Talk to them about all the doors. If you have an open communication with your children, that's the best protection.
No.
And in terms of what type of school you choose, that goes kid to kid. I love what Sister Tassim was saying about flexible schooling. That's my approach. My kids have gone through Islamic school, public school, homeschool, Islamic school, co-ops, public school, like, depending on where they are that year or where their state of mind is or what their emotional state is. We have to make decisions per child, per circumstances, and where they are. That's our role as parents.
So we don't have to put both kids in the same school just because the older one can protect the younger one, right?
I had 4 different school systems running last year.
Okay.
So,
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Barakallah fikum, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. So our time is up right now, inshallah. I want to give it actually back to the panel. Each one of them, if you guys can give us your final thoughts, your final advice that you can give to the parents, inshallah ta'ala, from your perspective. So, Brother Uthman.
For the parents specifically, learn to be kind to yourselves. It is scary raising a child, right? And this is why, you know, paradise is underneath the feet of the mother. So learn to be kind to yourself. Engage in self-care. Teach your children how to deal with overwhelming situations by taking a step back. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect, right?
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Sheikh Abdullah, your advice for the community and the parents, inshallah.
Parent on purpose. Just parent on purpose. You know, sit with the children individually, know how they are as a child and how they differ from one another, and make your communication with them effective based on their makeup.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Sister Tahsina.
Talk to your children, talk to the teacher, show an interest in your children's interest, and take it easy on them.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And finally from the parents. Bismillah.
One thing that I would really like as a parent that I've learned is I need to lower my expectations to my children's capabilities. And that will only happen through communication.
Can I just inject something here? I don't want you to lower your expectation.
Okay.
I want you to adjust your expectation. That's all.
That's true, yes.
No.
But in reflection of what our child's potential is,
No.
which may be higher than my expectation, actually.
نعم جزاك الله خير بارك الله فيكم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide their hearts ya Rahman ya Rahim. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give them the ability to see that which is true and follow it ya Rabbil Alameen, and to see that which is considered wrong and stay away from it ya Rahman ya Rahim. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put the love of the deen and iman in their hearts ya Allah. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our children, their parents and their families. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make it easy on their parents to raise their kids, Ya Rabbil Alameen. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our kids qurratu ayn, a coolness for our eyes and our hearts in the dunya and the akhirah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this responsibility easy on us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Barakallah feekum. Would like to thank all of you for being here with us, alhamdulillah, for our online audience, jazakumullah khair, for participating with us, for our wonderful panel, Brother Uthman Mughni, who was here speaking from a psychological perspective, emotional perspective, Sheikh Abdullah Uduru, who was speaking from a spiritual, alhamdulillah, perspective, and Sister Tahsina as a teacher of high school teachers who taught in Islamic school and public school, and Sister Huma as a mother, mashallah, of 5. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them, Ya Rabbil Alameen. I want to thank you all for being here. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this community with that which is best in the dunya and the akhirah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
You want to mention the e-letter that's on our website?
Sure. For the parents in the community, inshallah ta'ala, for those who would like to take a Eid note for the children for their absence from the school, it's already actually on our website, Valley Ranch Islamic Center.org or valleyranchmasjid.org. You can find there, inshallah, to whom it may concern. You can print that out. Inshallah, it's already signed and send it to the school and should be fine. Bidnillah azza wa jal. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you. Barakallah feekum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah